special episode. Now, normally I do my Sunday podcasts. You guys get to see kind of what I do behind the scenes, some of the projects I got. I put on different projects for you guys, show you guys how to do your own repairs. But I got a rare opportunity to work on this car now while the car is actually clean. I just got through getting it through a car wash, getting everything cleaned up on it, and now I kind of want to get this process done, because if I do decide to have this car buffed out and kind of shined up and maybe put some protection on it, I got to get the touch-ups done first. And the reason you do the touch-ups first is to make sure that when you buff it all smooth. That way you don't have high spots. Even though you do touch-ups, getting a touch-up perfect to where there's no high spots is just not possible. And you really don't want it to be a high spot. You want it to be flat and level. But the way to achieve that is to actually build it up, cut the paint down, then buff it back out. That gives you the best results for the best shine. Now, if it's not a show vehicle or a demo vehicle or a vehicle that you're putting on the channel, like the one you see behind me, the Silver Swine has already gone through this process. It's already had touch-ups done, it's already been cut and buffed, and it's actually got a 7-year ceramic coating on it. So that process has already been done on this thing, and it looks amazing. You get it out in the sun and it really shines being a silver truck. The fact that it's never had body damage, all the panels match, so you don't have any mismatching color either. It just sparkles. And that's really what you want when you're trying to make a vehicle look good. Now, why would you do this? Well, there's a couple of opportunities for you to benefit from this. One is to get the paint looking the best you can before you sell the vehicle. The next is you're just trying to preserve the body panels and not have them get rust on it. Anytime it's cut down to the metal, it will get rust on it just from even getting wet. So getting paint on it, at least so that you don't have bare metal, provides you the best protection. So really, before we get in, I always do my announcements. I know this was kind of a long intro part, but here we go. Intro. Thank you guys for all your support. Continue hitting the like, the follow, and subscribe buttons. And it really kind of helps build the channel. I really do appreciate all the support you guys give me. It means a lot. I've been on YouTube for the longest time. You guys are my main fan base. You guys have been here from the beginning. A little update on my health-wise. I'm doing better. I'm in the healing process. I need to stay active. So I need to walk and move and let my body do its natural things. So as I heal, things will get better. And that's kind of why I'm working on some of the small projects now. I'm not doing big stuff yet, and we do got some big stuff coming on Malibu steel. We got brakes to do. We got shocks and struts to do. We got an undercoating to do. There's a lot going on with this car that's going to take us all the way into winter, with a few winter projects that I'm going to do on this car. When I shut this car down, I'm pretty much going to blow the suspension completely out of it and rebuild it back. You guys will be here for the whole process. I'll show you guys everything as I go. If you guys got any questions down below, chat them in, and either myself or one of the fellow mechanics that I have listed as my moderators will help you answer your questions. Now, know that not all situations have a direct answer, so if we can't get to your answer, we will look it up and give you the proper information. So let's begin this process. Touch-up paint is pretty important if you don't want to get rust on the vehicle and if you're going to sell the vehicle. Making sure this thing looks perfect when you go to take it to a dealer is how you're going to maximize what you're going to get out of that car. If you take them a car that's all scratched up, got mud hanging off of it, and the interior is trashed, you're going to get less for the car. It doesn't matter if the car underneath is perfect, just the look of the car, they will deduct money. And this is a dealer trick that has been going on for decades. So knowing this trick will help you maximize when you're ready to upgrade or you just want to get into a different car. Yes, you have to spend a little time in your car. You have to make sure it's clean. You have to make sure that the scratches are touched up and everything's in good shape. So today we're going to go through that process. Now, I'm using a proper touch-up paint. I know for you guys this looks backwards, so when I flip the camera around, I'll show you guys. But I bought the AC Delco touch-up paint, and the reason why, silvers and kind of the pewter color or brownish colors are horrible to match, especially if they have high metallics. So you want to get proper matching paint. How you do that is you look up where your paint code is. On GM vehicles, it's pretty easy. It's in the glove box. There's a sticker on that glove box. It will say down below what the paint code is. For Malibu steel, it is a 706 S as in Sam. That's the paint code that you guys are going to see today that I'm putting on this car. And you want that paint code. Do not settle for any less. If you go to an auto parts store and they say, well, we have this one that cross-references, don't do it. Because that cross-reference, it will not match the way it's supposed to. Anytime you have a silver, like the silver Swine here, or you have this, what they call almost a gunmetal gray color here, make sure you get the perfect matching paint for it. Any less, and it's gonna really stick out and look weird. So, last thing you want is your touch-up paint to stand out. You want it to blend in the best it can, so that way when you go to buff the vehicle, you can't see it. It blends in, it levels out, it's smooth, and it's perfect. Now, if you're choosing not to buff it, let's say you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna trade your vehicle in, then you wanna get it as close as you can, and you don't wanna get crazy and overspill a bunch of paint onto the panels. Be careful with it. Little bit of touch up and you're good to go. Now, some spots you might not even need the brush that comes with it. You might need a smaller brush. If that's the case, get the little touch-up case that comes with an art set, and that is the best way to do it. Is you can use that little art touch-up set, and it's got really fine brushes. It allows you to really get in there. We got a chat here. What do you recommend for wrinkles? Are you talking about wrinkles in the paint, or are you talking like the crow's feet spider web that's in the paint? That I need to know, because those are two different things. If you've got a little wrinkle in the paint, sometimes you can use a heat gun and you can just slowly do it and then use something metal to lightly press down on that paint to flatten it back out. If it is the crow's feet that we're talking about, that is actually completely damaged paint under the clear coat, and you got to repaint it. Unfortunately, there's no quick way to fix that situation. I wish I could tell you that there was, but yes, the paint is not, and it looks like streaks. Okay, so I know with certain colors you'll get what they call tiger striping. That comes from whenever they repaint a panel. You could have that situation going on. Or if it looks like it's got like runs in it, then the best would be to wet sand it flat and then buff it back up. So you would probably wet sand with a 1,000-1,500 grit just to get it flat. Then you'll take a buffer across it and buff it back up. Make sure you got all the proper buffing compounds to do it. You're going to start a little bit with the coarse. Don't get carried away because you could burn through paint. But you'll start with a compound, work your way to a polish, and then you do like a final polish stage that you could add a wax to it on top. Just know every time you buff, you do chew away clear coat, and the more you chew the clear coat away, the more it's going to become visible, and you'll see a separation between the clear coat and the paint. I hope that one helps. The car is a Volkswagen, and it is white in color. Coat is peeling off, so I've been trying to clean it up. Okay, so you have clear coat peeling as well. Clear coat peeling can be handled a couple of different ways. There is a chemical that they make that you can go ahead and remove the rest of the clear coat, which makes it a little easier for you to kind of clean that up. Sorry about that. You can use that to remove the remaining part of the clear without damaging the paint underneath. Then you might have to do a light scuff, really light. You don't want to cut through that color. Then you have to re-clear over the top of it. Do you know the name? The name of what clear you would use? You could use pretty much any generic two-stage clear. The name of the color that you will get, you don't really need to know the name of the color, you'll just need to know the paint color. We're going to go ahead and get started to make clear come off. Oh, I got to look that up and I'll have to get back to you. I knew what it was a while ago, but I haven't really used it very much, so I don't have any on hand. But I will look into it and see what I can use to get that clear up for you. I'll try to let you know now that you've chatted in here. I'll be able to look back and then I can just message you. So we'll go that route. I'll check in with you and I'll drop it to you so you have that product that you can use to peel that clear off. Once the clear is off, you'll be good to go. You can just lightly scuff, respray the clear. I do recommend the Amazon two-stage clear though, because the hardener is in it. So once you poke the bottom of the can, you'll shake it up. That'll mix that hardener into it. Then you can spray it. Make sure you get a good technique. So buy a wasteful can and just practice your technique of getting the right overlap so that you get the proper overlap on the clear when you're painting. That's good. Okay, let's go ahead and get some scratches filled, guys. Thank you guys all for tuning in. If you got any questions, chat them in down below. We'll read them on screen. But I'm going to get you flipped around and we're going to get started. Okay, so our first one that I've located here that I want to highlight, it's kind of hard to notice, but it's this one right here. Let me get you guys in close. So this is what a normal scratch will look like on a piece of plastic, like a plastic bumper or anything like that. Again, if you guys get a chance, make sure you hit that like and subscribe buttons. I do podcasts every Sunday, and it all contains work like this that I do. Anything from tune-ups, brakes, shocks, and suspension, and then also just detailing and touch-up stuff like this as well. So you'll notice a slight color difference. This color will level out as long as it's the right color. I just need to give it time. Now, let's cover something. Let's say you do that touch-up and it doesn't dry very properly over time. What can you do to clean this up? Because these touch-ups don't have hardener in it, you can always go back at least within the 3 days. If you give it any more than a week, this stuff will harden up and then you won't be able to. But within 3 days, you'll be able to take general purpose adhesive remover. And the code is up here, right there in the middle of the screen. You guys can get that and actually wipe off any excess. And sometimes I will build the panel up really high with the paint, and then I'll go back over it and level it off. And that seems to work the best when I'm dealing with really big areas that I got to do. We're going to see some bigger areas as we get into the side panels on Malibu steel. We've got a couple of them here that I really want to highlight. So this one here is an ugly one. This one is really nasty. We can see that one, but here's something that you guys can do as a trick. If you ever wonder if it's through the clear, you can wet your finger and just rub it in and see if it goes away. So part of that went away when I got it wet. That means that it's in the clear. Where it didn't go away, that means it's into the paint. So doing a touch-up is what you have to do. Now this is a big spot to touch up, so I'm going to try to go a little bit lighter with my touch-up material. only touch up the areas that I have to. And you see me doing a drag technique with the brush. What this does is drags that metallic out, meaning it'll flatten it a little bit onto the car, and it'll help it blend away at certain light. So right there, that's a really good touch-up. When that one dries, you won't even see it. Now, there are some clear coat scratches that you might be able to see here. These are, you would use clear coat on. And when you buy these touch-ups, what most people don't know is this upper piece is your paint. Down here is your clear. And when you spin this off like this, you're going to notice a foam brush inside. You can use this foam brush, but it is a wide spread, so you're going to have a big spread of clear that you're going to see edges. On a deal like this, I would break out those little touch-up brushes that I talked about, and I would just do light touch-ups in the areas that I need the clear. And if I get a chance, I'll do that towards the tail end of the video. There are a few more clear coat scratches on the car that I would like to touch up, but we're going to keep moving with the color for now. So here's one that we got. We got a scratch underneath, so it's showing black, meaning that it's all the way through the paint. Then we have a scratch that we're going to check. Okay, that doesn't go away when it gets wet. So we're going to go ahead and touch up both of those. Again, we want to make sure that we don't use a lot of touch-up paint. So I always wipe the brush off on the lid, letting it fall back in. And we're going to keep using that drag technique that we used on the front. So this might need a second coat, and the reason I say that is if you look real careful, you can kind of see where that is yet. And when you see that, it means that you have to go back over it and do a second coat. We're going to do another one here that I might show that has to do a second coat, and then we can kind of go through that process. In a little bit, I'm going to show you guys some of the more common spots that you're going to need touch-up paints, and you might need some clears. Again, you want to use that light drag technique to flatten out the metallics so it doesn't stand out. That one actually blended perfect. I will not need to do a second coat on that one. The only one I might need to is that one right there that you guys see right there. So that one we might have to do a second coat on. So one place that you're going to have to do some special touch-ups are door jambs. A lot of people will ding the doors when they open them and close them. Sometimes they hit cars next to them. So these are a very common area where touch-up paint has to be applied. And this is one of the easier spots because you don't necessarily see it all the time. You can get away and be a little bit more aggressive with how much paint you put down because you don't need to get, you don't have to worry about it showing so much. So there's one spot that I'm trying to get the camera in on. Let me move that light out of the way here behind me. Okay, so one spot is right here on the door. These are good spots where you get chips, but this whole edge, you want to check every single door because oftentimes you'll get a small ding that you won't even realize, and then you notice later on that you get a little bit of rust there. That's because the metal's gone and it got wet. So I just had a small spot down here on this door, And I've already checked this jam. This jam is good, actually. They must not have used this side of the car very much. The driver's side is really bad. So that one's going to need a lot of touch-up. Okay, so this panel has some really nasty spots here. And I need to know, are they just a clear coat scratch? Or are they something more? If they go away, like we said, they're just clear coat. Yeah, they're going away. So these are all clear coat scratches, which means I'm going to use the clear coat touch-up. Now, again, these are really small, so I'm not going to use the horribly aggressive brush that comes in this. I will actually get one of my detail brushes for that. So we're going to move on and look for ones that require the paint. And then we'll come back to the clear coat scratches. Okay, those came out really good. Now this molding's got some really ugly ones. I'm going to try to get you guys in close so you guys can see just how ugly some of these are as we touch these up. Bill, good to see you this early. Yeah, I know this is kind of a special episode for you. Glad you're here. A little buffing compound by hand. Yep. Sometimes just a little buffing compound by hand after doing your touch-ups, and you can really get this stuff to polish up nice. Again, if you guys are going to sell your vehicle or trade it in, this is important to save you money and actually get more for your vehicle when you trade it in. If you don't do this step, they will dock you because they'll say, well, we got to run it through our shop and we got to do it. So a little bit of time can actually gain you a few thousand when you go to take it in on trading. Okay. So those came out pretty good. Now that's kind of a rougher surface that you see. You'll notice how rough it is, but the paint has been filled in. When I move straight onto it, it's a lot harder to notice. That's usually a sign that that has been really gouged up. So the more it gets gouged, the more you're still going to see it even though there's touch up, but you won't have any rust issues. Now, everything I'm touching up, guys, you won't have rust issues with this stuff because this is just rubber moldings. This is all cosmetic. So this part of it, if you were trading the vehicle in, this would help hide the paint defects so that you would get more for your vehicle on trade. It's not necessarily protecting the paint from having any rust attached to it. Now, as we move on, though, as soon as we come to wheel wells and body panels that are metal, that's when we're going to start having the rust issue, which is why we do need to be a little bit more aggressive when touching these up, because we want these to be covered. We don't want to have exposed metal. And I'm going to show you guys a crazy one. And the reason I call this crazy is because it's such a small spot, but when you rub your finger across it, you'll feel it. I got to move the light because you guys won't even hardly be able to see it if I don't. So right here, there's a chip. That chip goes down to bare metal. That spot right there below my finger would actually rust if you didn't touch it up. Just running it through a car wash. Moisture on bare metal is the worst thing you can have. You can live in an area that doesn't have rust or live in a rust belt. I do live in the rust belt, so I do have to worry about that. But having salt attack a panel is horrible. The water is not good on bare metal. it will actually chew into the panel and cause rust to happen faster. Salt's really aggressive, and it's not necessarily something I agree with, but sometimes they got to use it. So again, we're wetting the panel to see which scratches disappear and which ones don't. So this one had a little spot where it didn't disappear. So I am going to go ahead and touch this one up, and then that'll just have to get buffed, because this panel will be seen if I touch up in this spot. It's a very visible spot, so I cleaned out the brush as much as I could so I didn't get a lot of touch up on it. Okay, so even if you have spots that have a little bit of rust, I'm going to show you guys this one here. This is a good one for you guys. Let's say you didn't get to doing your touch-ups right away. You can see that my whole wheel liner here has rust up underneath. I will have to touch this whole thing up, and I might get a little creative when I go to do the undercoating on this car. I might just cover those with bed liner so it doesn't actually chip again. But even if you've got a little bit of rust, you want to cut off the oxygen. That's what stops rust from continuing on. So you can actually slow down a panel from rusting if you get after it and touch it up and cut off that oxygen. That makes a huge difference as far as slowing down the progression of rust. It won't stop it. You might think that, hey, it looks better or it's not getting worse, so we're in good shape. But realistically, it's still there. You're still having the rust eat into that panel. You might be asking, why am I using a light? The reason why is to get the panel to pop. I want to be able to see every scratch. And the best way to do that is use the light at an angle. So angled light actually works better than directly straight on. If I pointed a light straight at this, I would have a harder time seeing a scratch than if I was glancing at it from an angle. You guys don't necessarily see it the way I see it, but there's me staring at it straight on, and you can clearly see this scratch here, a little bit of a dent where paint's missing, and a light scratch. That light scratch will come out with clear right here. That's gone already, but it'll come back once it dries out. This one here, that one felt kind of deep. So when I can feel them with my bare finger, I will usually touch those scratches up, because even though they might not be through down into the paint, it's such a deep scratch that even if I put a little bit of color into it, it's not a bad thing. So a little touch up there. Again, we're using that drag technique because we want to drag out that metallic. We want to blend it away. Just like that. So now we're on to our bumper. And this bumper has got quite a few scratches. Now these scratches tell me that somebody backed into something. Trying to get you guys the best angle possible. Okay, you can see that somebody backed into something because there's several different scratches here that all are down really deep. So we're going to go ahead and touch these up. Again, you want to make sure you use that drag technique with anything that has a heavy metallic. If you have a flat color, all you have to do is dab the paint into where the paint is missing. If you have a heavy metallic like this, you want to drag the metallics out. You want to flatten them out so that they look level with the panel. Again, thank you guys all for tuning in. We usually do Sunday podcasts where I do content like this, discuss the weekly posts that I make on some of my other socials. Okay, I did that one on purpose. I want to show you guys something. So the rest of these, I'm actually going to wipe them out. Try to unload my brush a little bit. So the one that you guys see right there in the screen, I did that one on purpose. I'm going to show you guys what happens when you overdo it and you need to clean that off. So we will break out the cleaner material and we will just clean that one up. So a lot of this would just buff away. I wouldn't need to actually wipe that one off that you guys see, which is that one right there. But I'm going to just for demonstration purposes, so you guys know how this stuff works if you guys do have to use the general purpose adhesive remover. Okay, so what we do is we've got our stuff, we've got a rag. We will not let it drip on the panel because we do have touch-ups on other parts of the panel. We don't want to remove everything, we just want to remove that one spot that we're actually looking at fixing. So. And just like that, it's gone. And it actually shows up on your rag. So when you do it, it'll remove it and you'll see it on the rag. This will work for up to about 3 days. After about 3 days, this paint does start to cure. Then this trick doesn't work anymore. But if you do need to touch up a spot and you got a little carried away, the paint flowed out of the brush a little too fast and you got too much on the panel, that's the best way to fix it. And now that I did it, again, I'm going to use my technique and I'm going to just wipe on the inside lip off the brush, get the brush as dry as I can, and then I'm just going to touch up that one spot. Just like that. So again, a lot of this will dry over time and it'll actually come out really good. A little bit of hand buffing and possibly even a full machine buff. This thing could probably use a machine buff because somebody did get some matching spray paint. They got a little carried away and there's overspray on the car. So a buffing would probably be a really good thing for this car. There's one spot here that's tricky. So this is on a corner. So you have the corner of the bumper. It comes down here, then drops down. There's a rub rash from somebody dragging something, whatever they hit that caused all these other scratches, did a little bit of damage here on the bumper. So again, I'm just going to use that drag technique, try to fill in the spots that I can see the black of the bumper. Just like that, I'm going to leave it like that because then when you go to hand buff it, that stuff will come out and it'll look really clean. We do have a couple of spots here. There's a nick. So right here, there's a nick that drags across, and then we have another scratch. We're going to go ahead and touch these up too, since we're here. And the trick is to do this when the vehicle is clean. Make sure it's freshly off of a car wash. Make sure you do proper steps to clean it. I will show you guys those here in a little bit. Now these nicks are grabbing paint too, so I might have to do a couple of passes with the brush just to make sure I flatten those out. This one I'm going to build it up, and I'll take it off by hand buff, because that one was a little deep. All right, so just like that. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and move up to the front here a little bit. I'll cover some of the stuff that I talked about with prepping so that you guys know ahead of time how to prep for these panels. Make sure you always get the cap on tight when you're done, because you do want to hang on to this. You don't want this to dry out. A lot of times you can use this for quite a few years without it going bad. Again, there's no hardener in this, so it takes a lot of time for this stuff to harden up. That's why it's so forgiving if you overdo it on a panel and you need to wipe it off. There has been panels where I have really smeared this on a panel. I've gone back 3 days later and lightly wiped off all the stuff that was on the high side of the clear so that it only filled in down below the clear. And it actually came out really good. I'm going to show you guys that one in just a little bit. We're going to cover that process though of what you're going to do to clean and prep the panel. First thing, you're going to want a foaming glass cleaner. It works the best to strip everything off. It'll take wax off. It'll chew right into ceramic coatings. This is why they tell you not to use a glass cleaner on your paint after you've ceramic coated it, because it can damage and chew down that ceramic really fast. So spraying foam glass cleaners are usually your most aggressive cleaner that doesn't do damage to your paint. Now, if you rub too hard, you'll do damage with the rag. So a little bit of give and take. If you rub on your paint too much, you're going to scratch it. So try to do this in the cleanest possible way. Make sure you use a lot of foaming glass cleaner. Wipe the panel and let it just air dry. Don't try to wipe it dry. That wiping dry drags that rag across and will actually scratch the paint up pretty good. Before you do the glass cleaner, it doesn't hurt to use the general purpose adhesive remover, because this will actually remove any greases or any oils that might have came off of the vehicle and gotten up on the panel. Sometimes if you have a bad wheel bearing, it can throw grease up onto the panel, especially onto doors, fenders, and rocker panels. You could also have some tar debris from driving on the road. This stuff will also remove the tar debris. So I do this first, followed by the glass cleaner, then my touch-ups. Then I follow with the buff after the touch-ups have cleared or hardened. Again, it takes a long time, usually at least 2 weeks before I would ever touch this vehicle with a buffer, because if you hit it now, all you're going to do is buff everything off. It's not hardened enough to stay inside those gouges when you go over it with the buffer. It'll just strip it all off and you'll be right back down to either bare metal or black plastic. So again, these are kind of the steps that you're going to follow. Let's take a look at one that I really had to smear it before I had it buffed. This door had a tremendous amount of scratches in it because it was down in Arizona. It was my stepdad's truck, and he parked a van right next to the truck. And he was a bigger guy, so when he went to get out, he kept dinging the door against the door of the truck, and it scratched up the door really bad. I went through the same process as I just told you guys, and after the buff and the ceramic coating, you can't even tell it's there. Let's take a look at that right now. So this door had red marks and scratches all along here, the entire way. Doing this process, I was able to nearly eliminate all the scratches to where everything was gone. I took this vehicle to a dealership to get an appraisal done on it. When I went there, they massively docked how much they were going to give me. We're not talking a little bit. We're talking, okay. At one time, I was looking at trading this truck in on a brand new Dodge Ram. I know, Dodge Ram, especially after everything that's happened with Ram lately. This was shortly after the news of Stellantis buying them. So I figured, okay, I got a little bit of time. I want to get into a new truck. I was going to use this truck that had extremely low miles, trade it in, but I didn't do all the work to it. I didn't touch it up. I didn't clean it up real good. So it showed that ugly side of the door with all the red marks in it, all the scratches in it. It looked really bad. This truck, I've had dealers already offer me about $30,000 for this truck, the way it sits right now. The dealership was only going to give me $8,000 for this truck. And their excuse was, well, the one door looks really bad. We might have to repaint it. After I did the process I showed you guys, I didn't repaint that door. I was able to pull the scratches out and get it looking the way it should. These are the tricks that the dealers are going to use to dock you down when you go to sell your vehicle. This is why a lot of people have gotten away from trading their vehicle in at a dealership, is because this is the thing that hurts you the most. When they go in, they're looking to maximize their profit when they resell that vehicle. Even if they're going to take it to auction, they want to hit you down as far as they can, so when it goes to auction, they still make a profit. That's their goal. So if they make a profit selling you a new vehicle and they make a profit off of your used vehicle, they've made profit on top of profit. These are tricks that I'm trying to teach everyone that we have to watch out for, especially at the dealer level. I know there's dealers that are going to get upset with me and are going to get mad that I'm spilling the beans here, but this is what they do. They try to dock you down to make money as much as they possibly can. And I get it, they're a business, they need to keep the lights on. But the price of new vehicles, if they're not making money now, then they won't make money, plain and simple. The values are actually so high that they use their own financing. Again, that's another trick. So if you don't have your own financing lined up, what'll happen is they will recommend you use their financing. Their financing comes with a lot of loopholes, and the interest is all profit to them because it's GM financing it. It's Ford Financial financing that vehicle. It's not a bank. The bank doesn't make anything because the bank is the dealership. So pay attention to that trick and be ready. Now, sometimes you can catch the 0% interest. If you can catch it when it's really low and you're not losing that much, it might be beneficial for you to go that route versus going with a traditional bank because the interest rates are a lot lower. If you get into that situation, that's understandable. But if you go into a straight GM financial and they're putting it on like what they call a credit card, that credit card is usually at a much higher interest rate, can be in the upper 20s. And to buy a vehicle on a 20% interest rate is crazy. You're going to pay just as much in interest as what you're paying for the car, and it's going to take you a lot longer to pay that car off. So things to keep in mind. These are some of the tricks that you're going to want if you are looking at upgrading vehicles. If you're looking to get into something newer or get into something that just fits better and feels better, that's the best way to go to make sure you maximize your dollars. The other thing is vacuum out the interior and wipe off the dash. Get that dust off of everything. Get it looking clean. There's a lot of interior products that I'm going to feature in this Sunday's podcast that has to do with interior cleaning. Guys, make sure you tune into that one because I'll go through all the interior stuff that you'll need to clean up your interior if you chose to get it ready for sale, or if you just want to protect the dash and keep it from cracking due to sun or other things. Putting a good protection on it really does help. And it helps with paint as well. Because when it comes from factory, there's no protection. It's clear coat and that's it. And oftentimes their Auto Butler detail thing, if you go through 4 car washes, it's gone. Gone. And even the expensive ceramic coatings like you guys see here on Silver Swine. This one's got a very high dollar ceramic coating on it. And it looks great and it shines really nice. The thing is, these are limited coatings. That coating is meant to take the damage away from any damage that could happen to the clear coat, but it does wear away over time. So number of washes, how long it sits out in the sun, if you have to use any harsh chemicals to clean off the paint. If you leave it underneath a tree and you get a bunch of tree sap on it, then you have to clean that tree sap off. That can be an aggressive process that can damage that ceramic coating. These are all things to know, where you're putting the vehicle, how you're storing it, and kind of what you're doing with that vehicle. So normally at this point in my podcasts, I kind of do a wrap up of, weekly posts that I've made. I've kind of been narrowing down and not posting my posts here so much, but some of the posts that I had on some of my other sites, we have some news on kind of the GM front and the Ford front and kind of what's been going on the electric side of things. So what we got on the Ford front is they're kind of gaslighting customers. And I know they're probably going to get mad at me, but I don't care. As I'm here, I tell you guys the truth and I share what I know so that you guys are better prepared if you guys choose to walk into the dealership. They're gaslighting customers because for the longest time, at least the last probably 4 or 5 years, they've really pushed away from cars. No, we don't want to make cars anymore. We don't want to make cars anymore. Now, all of a sudden, they've switched gears. Now they want to make cars again. And if they make cars like the Ford Taurus, they might as well not make cars. Those were horribly plagued with problems, had a huge amount of recalls. In my post, I flat out say, if you're going to make a car that's going to have a whole bunch of recalls, you might as well call it the Ford Maverick, because the Maverick has the most recalls out of all the Ford vehicles currently. It's crazy, all the issues with the Ford Maverick right now. And a lot of it is, I think they rushed it into production. They didn't take the time to do their research. They didn't narrow down what was going on with that vehicle. They rushed it into production, and there it went. On the GM front, GM got hit by the EPA. This one's going to hurt GM because this is going to have to take a cut out of their research and development budget because they're not going to be able to invest that $148 or $49 million that they were going to have into research and development. So it's probably going to come out of there. It could come out of other things. They could cut a line of vehicles to kind of eat up some of that cost of the EPA finding them, but they did fine them for basically not meeting the emission standards on several different models. So as crazy as that sounds, GM also got hit with that. So we're going to start seeing a lot more of the EPA push. And the reason why, number one, it's an election year. They want to get as much money as they can before everything switches over. Because if it does, they may not have the free will to go after as many people as they are right now. So they're taking advantage of it. And the dealerships are paying the price, unfortunately. Lastly, on the EV front, I know people are EV fans. People that have been with me for the longest time know how I feel about EVs. You just got to look back at a few of my videos and you'll see why I may or may not agree with certain things that are EV. EVs have taken 2 big hits. First one is there's an update coming up that allows parental control basically on the car. So if they were to borrow it out to a family member, the update is going to allow you to set a curfew on the car. Now, where I have an issue with this is who else has control of that curfew control? Does Tesla still have the ability to go in and shut your car down? That's the question that people should be asking if they own one. And I know GM has had issues with it. I've put out a video on how you can eliminate yourself from having that issue. There are things you can do, but there's also things and features that you're going to lose by having to disable that system. So again, if you guys go back, you can check out any of, I believe that one was actually a podcast, so you might be able to go back and check that one out in the podcast section. And the last piece of the EV news that we're going to drop in here, this one hasn't dropped yet on my other socials, so you guys are getting a sneak peek on this one. They're already cutting the American line of charging stations is already saying that they're going to cut back the amount of power that you're allowed to charge your car up to, meaning they're going to cut back the percentage. They're only going to allow you to charge up to 85% on a battery if you go to their charging stations and charge your car. Meaning, you won't have to sit at the charger as long, but at the same time, you're not going to get as much charge, which limits your range that you can go. Meaning that you'll have to visit that charging station again much sooner. And we're going to start seeing a lot of this just because the infrastructure isn't there. I've been saying it for years. This got pushed through by the current administration. They just jammed it down our throats and forced us to deal with it. And the charging grid isn't there. It isn't built in to be able to do what we need it to do. You might get away with it in a big city where you have options, but you're going to have to deal with other people needing to run the chargers as well. You get outside of major cities and some areas there's blackouts. You're not getting a charger unless you go way out of route, and many people who have the EVs already know this. So I'm not really saying anything new there, but the fact that one of the bigger charging stations is already saying we're going to limit the percentage of charge means that they're having a harder time getting the amount of electricity that they need for everyone to use it freely. We're going to notice these blackout periods, especially in the summertime when it starts getting hot, where the charging stations are going to either go down or may not charge at all. And that was the issue that we saw in Chicago not too long ago. They had a rolling blackout on it. They had to choose whether or not the charging stations got power or they tried to restore power to the city. They chose to restore the power to the city. Charging grids had to suffer. So these are things that we have to question whether we want to piggyback on electric when other things require so much more. Your homes, businesses, all these things require electricity a lot more. So why should we put our cars on that same network and have them drain the system down? Things that people should have thought about before this all came about, but it didn't work out that way. There's a lot more alternatives coming out to where hybrids may be the way to go. And the plug-in hybrids are kind of the future. So the plug-in hybrids are kind of the best of both worlds. The problem is that we're going to see a shift in that technology. I've described all that in other videos, so I'm not going to bore you guys here with the details. But you guys can check it out in other videos. Again, thank you guys for all the support. Everyone who supported me over the time that I've been healing and trying to get back into things. You guys, my fan base means a lot to me. You guys are awesome. If you guys got any questions, make sure you chat them in. I will always go back and try to reread them. Crank, I will get to you as soon as I can figure out what that product is that's being sprayed on that clear to loosen that clear up so it can be peeled off the panel. Now, some of them may not be as good, so hopefully we find one that works perfect for you. But again, thank you guys for all the support. Continue hitting the like, the follow, and subscribe buttons, and I'll see you guys on the next one.